We have a few questions that I'm going to pose to Yash, but we'd like to sort of make it interactive. So do feel free to interrupt us, heckle, throw rocks, whatever you want to do, right? I think it's as possible. Just by way of introduction, and I'll let Yash introduce himself in a second. I'm John Standring. I used to work for American Express. I used to run procurement under the GBS banner, end-to-end procurement, including the chief procurement officer through to payables. We were an end-to-end procurement function. Obviously, American Express doesn't have real true supply chain. Most of our spend was indirect cost. We didn't build anything unless you happen to have an American Express card in your wallet, which I hope you do. I used to come from my team, and I'll tell you all the stories about how hard it was to make a metal card when it first came out a few years ago. It was quite a challenge. But anyway, and that's my background. Yash, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, certainly. Thank you, John. So welcome, first of all. Thanks for taking our time and joining it. My name is Yash Chauhan, and I'm the global head of NeoTangent. NeoTangent is the business process management, or I would say new age business process management organization, which provides services for the back office activities like finance and accounting, human resource services, customer support, as well as the middle office, which is the whole end-to-end supply chain services. I will talk more about it, about the organization, but NeoTangent is about 2 decades long organization. It's about 20 years ago in 2004. And we are part of Lee & Fung. Lee & Fung is a global giant in trading at the supply chain solutions. About 118 years old organization, which started in 1906 from Hong Kong, but it's a very fairly global organization. We are part of that ecosystem. So that's where I am. And quickly about me, I have more than 3 decades of experience in this industry. Previously, I worked with Oracle Shared Services. I set up their shared services with Genpact for long years, and Fidelity Investments, Mitsubishi. But most of the times in the shared services as well as in the business process management or outsourcing industry.
Maybe I'll give a little bit of fact, but keep a dive on Lee Fung in terms of the types of industries and customers you provide supply chain to.
Certainly. So Lee & Fung is majorly into the retail industry for related to the apparel, home and accessories, and and equipments actually which you see for the building equipments, that area. At the same time, it is also into the CPG industry. Some of the clients like the beverage organization or movies also we serve to. That's Lee & Fung. But for NeoTangent, it's much beyond that. NeoTangent is obviously into the retail industry, and as well as on the CPG side, very good, and on the high tech. So that's where we are. We are pretty heavy on the supply chain side and middle office. It's the knowledge that we conjured from the last, I would say, 118 years old and 20 years on our own. So that's where we are. The other thing is, which makes us very interesting, is that 2 decades ago, Lee & Fung started or created a middle office to take care of the fulfillment part of, the fulfillment part of the goods. I mean, there is a sourcing, there is a procurement or the product selection, which gets done by Lee & Fung. But then there is a whole downstream part of it, which is the fulfillment. I mean, right from the master data management, shipment planning, logistics planning, track and trace, real-time tracking and tracing, and then the whole banking part of it, the LC management, the customs solutions. And nowadays, the sustainability and traceability is very, very heavy on the regulatory side. Last mile delivery, warehousing, the whole end-to-end. That is done by NeoTangent. So that's our specialty. So that's the knowledge that we conjured. So Lee & Fung created this middle office in 2004. And somewhere after 10 years, it became the GBS in the sense that Li and Fung is not just Li and Fung, it has many other organizations into beauty products, into logistics, and various other type of businesses. So the whole ecosystem is fairly large. And this middle office served the entire ecosystem of the partner organizations. So in a way, we were the limited BPO or the BPM organization serving to the retailers. But what we have done is that we are expanding our wings as an independent organization, sort of becoming an independent business process management organization. Our story is a little different than some of the examples in the market, which were the GBS, and then they became the BPO organization. We are not a 2.0 version of it because we are heavy on middle office. And we very much have the linkage with Li and Fung and its wisdom to serve to our customers on the supply chain side. So, so that's our story, actually. That's where we are.
Yeah. So you're a global organization. You're based in Hong Kong, been around for 100 years. We'll start at the macro level of supply chain, right? So as you look across in the post-pandemic world, and gosh, it's 4 years now and already fading somewhat into the rearview mirror, and allegedly we are now back to normal, air quotes, for supply chain. What do you see as the challenges and opportunities affecting all industries right now in the sort of post-pandemic?
Yeah. So, so for supply chain, it's an interesting world, or it has been an interesting world. So during pandemic, we thought or we envisaged that we will have the new normal. However, if we see the world, it's a different world. I mean, so there are various factors actually we look at. We were thinking that the economy will take a downturn. However, we are not doing that bad actually. You see, although the GDP is going at its own pace, but the global trade, if you look at, it's going only at 3%, which is all-time low. However, the economy is not doing that bad actually, if you see. But the problem is from the supply chain that other things popped up in the sense that there is geopolitics impact. Every day it's happening. So every conflict has a direct impact on supply chain, which means, and if we have the impact on the supply chain, it has an impact on your cost of goods sold. It's a direct impact. And then there is a trouble in the water. So, Red Sea, and then there are trouble in the countries. Bangladesh story, it has a huge impact on the apparel industry. So, and the other thing is, added to that, there are, and could be a fallback from the geopolitics, but it's new regulations which are coming up into place. So regulatory is becoming more and more stringent and coming up with the new requirements. So that makes supply chain complicated and is changing and very unpredictable at this moment. So that's the factor. That's the reality actually in front of us. The third thing is that people talk about China plus one strategy. That's also coming up. We say it's not China plus one. Could be we can say that it's China plus X, because other than China, there are different options from that part of the world where sourcing happens, procurement happens. While it may be a good news for the customers that they may have better choices or more choices in terms of their sourcing and procurement strategy. But from neo-tangent perspective, for us, or from the supply chain fulfillment part, it's more complicated. Because then you have different shipments coming in from different countries, and then they have to be managed actually so that the goods can be delivered at the destination. It's not as simple as it used to be like one country, by and large, you pick it up from China and then ship it to the destination that way. So, and added to that, there are compliance issues, as I mentioned. So these are the three factors which are predominant in the modern supply chains, which are impacting, and it will become more and more complicated. It will definitely not stop the way it is going. Yeah.
So if you were starting a supply chain transformation initiative today, what would your advice be to leaders on a supply chain transformation?
Yeah. So, there is an interesting change in the supply chain services. I'll take services part, the fulfillment part. Sourcing and procurement definitely is a big area. But when I talk about I'm going to talk about the fulfillment part. That is an area which has taken a very interesting turn, in the sense that before pandemic, this was an area which was typically the COO's area, Chief Operating Officer's area, and not really the CFO's area, actually. And so, which means it's a middle office, not back office. Back office was always, the most susceptible, the target for the centralization, consolidation, and improvement in terms of either shared services, GBS, or capability centers nowadays, or could be the outsourcing organizations. But really nothing or very minimum which happened in the middle office, right? And that's because of the perception that this middle office is something which is highly contextual, which is right actually in some ways. That cannot be centralized or cannot be managed. So, that was kept left, completely out of the GBS model or the centralization model. So the involvement of third parties were very minimal actually. But pandemic showed, and one more thing, that we always had the world-class platforms to manage the supply chains. And had we had the good platforms to manage everything, then we would not have problems during the pandemic. But the first thing that got hit was the supply chain itself, which means there is something missing in the whole supply chain services, which could be your domain, which be the way actually you manage your supply chains through the partners efficiently, or putting the transformative mindset into it instead of doing it traditionally. Like merchandisers are busy in tracking their shipments rather than the product. However, merchandisers or the buyer should be more focused on their products. They're more worried about the shipment, actually, how it is going. So all that, after pandemic, it really necessitated to bring the experts or the need of the third parties, actually, which can manage pretty much the same as we did for finance and accounting or HRS, like 30 years ago that we did. So this is an emerging area, and some of the research reports, like HFS research report, indicates that almost 60% of the organizations are now seriously considering the involvement of the third parties, pretty much on the similar lines of the back office, in terms of either consolidation or running the transformation programs. So technology is not enough. In this case, there has to be an integration of the domain and technology in the middle office part. So that's an exciting time for us.
As that, how do you define metrics of success for supply chain transformation? And maybe does this pandemic experience mean that we've been tracking the wrong metrics, to your point, and we should think of new metrics or additional metrics to see transformation?
Oh, certainly, yes. So one of the things which really changed dramatically during and after the pandemic is that the enterprises are expecting the visibility of the supply chain of the shipments like almost real time. And some of the research agencies are saying that supply chain is no more an operational topic. It has become a boardroom discussion item at this moment. So the customers are expecting the visibility part, that almost real-time visibility. The second is the resilience, which is required, because that is the only way actually you can handle, the water situation or Red Sea and all those kind of things. That is it resilient. And third is the agility part. So these are the three aspects which need to be considered, or actually it is required. Every enterprise is expecting that. So the metric or the measurements are built around these three areas. So there are various metrics. It's very different than it used to be before pandemic. Like in terms of track and trace, then there are different ways, or so where is my shipment per minute? All those metrics are being devised at this moment. just to take care of the visibility aspect. Yeah, yeah. So these are the three areas.
So do one more question. I'll open up for questions from the grid. You mentioned earlier about compliance and the rise of compliance. I used to work for a bank, so I spent most of my time in third-party lifecycle management, trying to work out how to validate all my third-party vendors. You're not a bank, but the compliance across legal entities. So what's your advice on transforming supply chain while also dealing with this compliance, this legal complexity, and in particular, countries are becoming a little less global. They're becoming more protectionist. They're bringing out their own legislation, and that the global economy is starting to sort of break down a little bit into more a patchwork of legal entities and compliance, but you still want to transform the end-to-end.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's related to what we just discussed, before, that the middle office is becoming the target area for consolidation, transformation, or at least the involvement of the third parties. And this area is being opened up, quite rapidly. So, in the back, let me take a little step back. In the back office operations, finance and accounting, etc. So we always talk about the transformation, but this is just one piece of the puzzle. That transformation that we bring in the back office is only limited, because that's the downstream anyway. Unless we touch the COO's organization or on the supply chain side or production, that part of the world, you really cannot achieve the entire transformation. And although we do the upstream transformation as well, but it's very limited. But with the opening up of this middle office now, the transformation possibilities or the areas of the potential areas, one is of course that bring the experts and follow the path which is a proven path on the back office operations, which is which works for the GBS or the outsourcing organizations, centralized activities either internally or externally, which are for the supply chain services part. That's one. That will actually facilitate to drive the transformation projects, which are the process transformation projects, which would be linked to your back office at this moment. Although it sounds like a dream, but I think it's becoming a reality at this moment of time. There are some engagements which are happening on the supply chain side, at least with us, with our clients.
So just to clarify, your middle office, you are in the middle office, but you also in the back office too.
Yes, yeah.
So you have pretty much end-to-end procurement,
yes,
and fulfillment, but not necessarily the decision-making at the front. So that's, yeah, okay.
So I can take a quick example, two examples quickly. One is that one of our customer with whom we are doing pretty much everything, the supply chain services, as well as the finance and accounting for that, and some portion of the HRS too. So they acquired a new customer, but the way we handle the transactions from the procurement side, right from the master data management, and then, the subsequent processes. So our people are doing, or at least we have connection with their finance and accounting departments pretty much linked to each other. So that really facilitates to drive the transformation and create value. Now, we have come up with our own commercial model. It's a unique commercial model. So in the market, actually, we have a FTE model or FTE pricing, or you have an outcome-based pricing, gain share. But what we do have is the value partnering model. Value partnering model means you bring the different parties, which means the customer and us, as well as some of the third parties which are involved as well, and focus on the value rather than who is going to get what. I think that the debate was that what is my share in the game, and more one-time in nature. But this is very continuous process that we focus on the value and then you share. Underneath could be different models. I don't mind actually having an FTE model if it works. Sometimes it works. But those are some of the outlays of the commercials. That's one. Second item is the COGS, actually, the cost of goods sold. That is ultimately the target for, is the target from the supply chain perspective as well as from the finance and accounting perspective. We run different transformation projects on the CFGS side. We have our own proprietary tool which can track the cost of the goods from the three sides. One is your material cost, second is the conversion cost, third is the logistics cost. And the problem typically is that you are not able to tell the product, the cost at the product level. However, we are able to do that. So that's another potential area for transformation. And that's where the real meat is, because that's the real outcome, the ultimate outcome.
Well, any questions from the audience? Well, let's finish with a future state question, right? Before we break for lunch. If you look out in the next year or two, what do you see as emerging trends in supply chain and supply chain optimization? Where do you see it going?
So one is, of course, the supply chain opening up quite a lot, which means more opportunities for. I see a bright future. Let me say it in one line. I see a bright future as opposed to many years ago, which was actually closed door and I'll do it myself. I'm sorry to use this, but this is how it used to be. Versus that we are more open and could be driven by, the cost pressures or the way it is working. So it's more open. So which means there is a silver lining in the dark cloud. So that's one. Second is the emergence of the artificial intelligence, especially the generative AI. More and more, there is a huge possibility into the whole supply chain. There is not one AI to solve the entire chain, but I think it's going to be the stack of the things like track and trace. Track and trace is an area which can, or let's say production planning or product designing as well. In our case, we are already having the use cases on the generative AI, on the product design. And actually, it's helping us a lot for our customers as well.
What would be the use case for Gen AI?
So use case for Gen AI, let's say the product designing. You had the 3D modeling, etc. But then with the with the integration of the Gen AI or the product design, you have more choices as well. It's become simpler, and you have more choices. But in that, the timing has actually obviously come down in that. I'm not talking about the content creation because that is quite obvious. That is anyway there with us, the whole area of the content creation. But I'm talking about more from the supply chain side, actually. The planning part, the product designing part. That's where we have been using. And it's going to increase because it's the time for the use cases creation. But as we go along, in the next few years, we know that the back office is getting disrupted with the generative AI. Definitely. Already finance and accounting got disrupted with a lot of RPAs, etc. But that's becoming thing of the past. No. But supply chain, it's our chance actually in the next few years. How we can integrate or at least embrace the artificial intelligence on the optimization of supply chain, along with the consolidation and all those efforts. So that's the future I see. And plus, of course, the work is more and more complicated from compliance standpoint, which will make our supply chain more and more complicated and not going to be simpler. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you, Yash. Any other questions before we break for lunch? We're back up to lunch, so everyone's hungry. All right. Great. Well, thanks for coming along today. Thanks very much. Thanks, Yash. Thank you.